Hi, I think we are now live. Hi, welcome, cultists. Thank you for coming to the Shining Icosahedron Great Order. This is First Acolyte for one of us, and with me we have the big James Slade.
Sure. Yep.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good evening. How are you? Good. It's good to be here.
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much. I'm happy that you're here. I'm very interested in the project, but
Mhm.
before we jump into the project and all that good stuff, I would like to know who you are. So, first of all, where do you live or where are you from?
So I'm right outside, a little bit outside of Boston, Massachusetts, up in the
Mm-hmm.
Northeast, up in New England. Um, I professionally, I am a software engineer, but I am also a game master, player, streamer, miniature painter, the whole nine yards.
Nice.
Um,
The full hobby.
yeah, exactly. And I've been playing D&D itself since the early days. I still have my red box and blue box and everything over here in the corner someplace back when I was a kid in the 80s.
How
Um,
did you start it?
a friend of mine actually, his older brother got a hold of one of the boxes and he's like, "You want to come over and we'll try this out?" So we did. It was very much like you see in Stranger Things. We were sitting in his dining room, actually, with graph paper and everything like that, and playing D&D very badly.
Badly because you were
We
young
were we
or
were we were 12 years old and trying to figure out the rules and not really interested in rules as
yeah.
much as, you know, killing the monsters.
So just for our very young or not so familiar as audience, when you mention the boxes, what do you mean?
So the D&D packs came at first in boxes roughly the size of a large book. Actually, do I have it handy here? I don't. So think of the player's handbook and things that you have now. It was a
Hmm.
box about that size, came with a module, some dice, a crayon, because the dice weren't painted, and what you did was you scribbled it with scribbled the crayon on it, and the wax filled in the numbers so you could read it, and a rule book and some character sheets, and that was it. That was the whole kit and caboodle. So there was one that was red and one that was blue. The red box was first. Blue box was Advanced Dungeons and Dragons,
Nice.
and
Okay.
that came out a little later. And I still, like I said, I still have them someplace, but not super handy.
Well, I guess you use other things now. I mean, a lot of things come out every
Oh
year,
yes,
every time.
yeah, 100%.
So
Right
this,
now we're doing. I mean, right now we do everything, almost everything virtual. But I still have an in-person game that I take my laptop to. You know, that's that's where everything is now.
yeah, that's true. I mean, it's more practical, especially if you're going to move.
Mhm.
But sometimes having like the miniatures and the maps and everything that you
Oh,
can touch,
yeah. I mean, I still have, a ton of them here. I'm working on a couple right now, in fact, for my in-person game.
that's cool. So, what came first? I mean, you mentioned that you started
Mhm.
playing with your friends, but what came first? Like really getting into playing or the miniatures or which part of the
Oh,
hobby?
the miniatures came much later. So I played a whole lot as a kid and then all the way through till college, and then stopped for a while. I left college, I started working, that sort of thing. Uh, and then but I've also been a long time video game player and the
Okay.
D&D video games as well. The old Dragonlance games, Baldur's Gate when it came out. I sunk way too much of my life into the Baldur's Gate series on the PC when it came out. Um, but then a number of years ago, I was playing in a World of Warcraft guild, and some friends of mine said, "Hey, this is around the time Fifth Edition came out. We're going to try the new D&D. Do you want to play?" I'm like, "Oh man, I haven't played in forever. Yeah, let's do this." And then started there, got back into it. Miniatures actually only came in a few years ago with an in-person game that I was asked to run. I had just gotten a 3D printer for doing a number of different
Nice.
things. I'm like, oh, I
Yeah.
can make miniatures. And that's what I did. I started poorly at it, but over the years, I've gotten the past few years, I've gotten better at it.
Well, yeah, I mean, of course, we have to start learning.
Hmm.
So, how, I guess you know that there's a little of a battle between 3.5 and 5th edition, right? So, how
Sure.
did you feel coming back to the hobby, coming back to the game to 5th edition?
So you mentioned 3.5. We played a lot of that, and then I missed fourth edition entirely. I That was around the time I stopped playing. I was working, leave school. All my friends are in different places. We didn't really have the internet the way it is now, so we weren't playing as much. So I missed it entirely. From everything I've read and looked at it, and I have a couple of fourth edition rule books around. I didn't miss it. It's not my style of play. Um, I like them both for different reasons.
Okay.
3.5 and now Pathfinder has sort of kept that legacy on with uh, much more flexibility in how you build your characters and the prestige classes and different things along those lines.
Yeah.
Fifth edition is very story based, very character based. Um, but the one thing it is it's a lot more flexible and open to interpretation. We have rules as written, rules as intended. Uh, Fifth edition for me and a number of my players, though, there's a little more flexibility we feel in being able to screw around with our stories and characters, uh, and it's a little more collaborative, in my opinion. This is purely me, than it was in 3.5. 3.5 wasn't quite as collaborative between the players and the GM as much as
Okay.
5 is. Um, I I don't know if I have a preference. I think I play more fifth edition now, so I'm more used to it.
Yeah.
Um, I do loves me a Pathfinder game. I loves me a Starfinder game. We had a fun series of Starfinders games a few years ago with that same group that I mentioned from my WoW guild that I'll
Mm-hmm.
get back to in a minute as well. Um, but it's the one thing about fifth edition that that is there though is people can start it quicker.
Yeah.
One of my in-person groups, my wife is not a gamer. She doesn't play these types of games. She was
Okay.
able to jump into a D&D game in fifth edition and actually pick it up and go with it. Um, I have two sons. They play it all the time. They'll pull their friends into it. It's easier for that to get going in fifth edition than it is a 3.5 or a Pathfinder
Yeah, that's true.
if you're playing canonical.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Precisely yesterday we had another interview and the guest was mentioning that he recommends fifth edition for people that's starting. So
Mhm.
yeah, I also agree. It's easier to start playing. So you mentioned Pathfinder and Starfinder. So
Mhm.
what other systems have you played or games do you like?
Ooh, so I have played a number of different systems. I've been playing. Recently, we played a system that just recently got kickstarted called Die,
Mm,
which was based off of a graphic novel actually a while back.
yeah.
That was a little dark system. I've done a number of Apocalypse Engine games. On the Pyro Club, we had a Monster of the Week campaign we ran for a while. Um, I've played um oh gosh, what was the name of that other system? We tried it out for a short period of time and I cannot remember the name of it. Uh with a couple of other folks. I like to try these new things out, try out new systems. Um I'll pull things off of DM's Guild or itch.io and just try them out.
Mm-hmm.
Um we have on the Pyro Club a thing about kobolds. Kobolds is a theme for us.
Okay.
And there's a system that we picked up that's just called Three Kobolds in a Trench Coat. And the game is the players are these three kobolds trying to pretend to be a human and not get caught walking through like Chicago.
Yeah.
Um, so there's a lot of that sort of thing. I oh gosh, Savage Worlds. We played some Savage Worlds game. I've played the Star Wars pen and paper from many years ago. I try to get in a lot of them, as many as I can. I'll still fall back to D&D as the home field type of approach, but I'm in it for the role playing and the storytelling. So
Yeah.
I can try out any system and see how it goes.
All right. But you would always go back to D&D if you have to pick one to be the only one you play.
The only one, probably, just because that's where I grew up.
Yeah, makes sense.
But there's so many good stuff out there. I wouldn't want to be put in a position where I had to pick just one.
Okay, I'll give you 3. So we usually have here our guests that usually have the DM curse that they are pretty much the ones DMing all the time.
Forever DM, yes.
Yeah. Is that also your case?
It generally speaking, it can be. I try really hard not to be, though. One of the things that we do in the Pyro Club whereas it's a community, we have other folks. We encourage other folks to take on GM duties. I am currently running a campaign here on Sunday nights that we have 4 players on. I run a few different over the history of the channel. I've run a few different games. I started as a player, though, and I
Yeah.
play in a number of one shots. I'm coming up on one in a couple of weeks with a couple of friends of mine from other Twitch channels. I try to make sure, that's the beauty of a community like this, especially on Twitch and with Discords, is you can get the opportunity to do both a lot easier than if I'm just the GM at my game store.
That's true, yeah.
But yeah, I do end up GMing an awful lot more, though.
So, well, I guess you will say the same that you answer with systems, but which one is your favorite, being a player or a GM?
I don't know if I really have an answer to that, because I love being a player. I love coming up with a character idea. And the things that I love about being a player are a lot of what appeals to me as a GM is making the story. I take my GM DM role as creating the story, and I get to play so many different characters during the course of the campaign. I take pride in my NPCs, some of them being, characters themselves almost. So that's why I have a tough time, coming up with that answer. Playing is a lot easier. You don't have to spend time prepping.
That's true.
I spend a lot less time making maps on my computer when I'm a player than when I'm a GM. But I don't know if I have a real definitive answer to that. I love the game in general, and I like playing it. I like GMing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I understand. I do like to ask because sometimes we get some
Sure.
fun answers with that.
Yeah, I'm not fun in that regard. I like playing the game,
So, did any of the players that you started playing with are on the Pyro Club, or is that like
Well, so when
later
I
on?
started with like the kids and everything like that, no, as a matter of fact, I only recently got in touch with one of those kids about 3 years ago for the first time since we were in junior high school. Uh, so I mentioned the WoW Guild earlier,
Yeah.
and there was a group of us that were in the WoW Guild, and we started playing D&D and started our campaign. And as a matter of fact, this was my character in the campaign, a tiefling sorcerer,
Okay.
who's sort of one of the mascots of the Pyro Club channel. And we were messing around with it. And it was around the time Critical Role came out, the Adventure Zone started their podcasts. A number of different play podcasts were up there. And one of the guys that was in the group with us said, maybe we could record it or stream it or something. And we were messing around with some things, ended up on Twitch. And that was the first Pyro Club Adventures. That was the nickname of our party. Um,
Oh, okay.
well, because we, for the first 3 or 4 levels, our solution was to burn something down. Um, tiefling sorcerer is going to throw a fireball. Um, but the actual name came from uh, our DM and our cleric. Our cleric could not hit a sacred flame to save his life, and it was always they always made their saves. So for flavor, the DM would make it sort of more like a fire bolt, and like the sacred flame hits a tree instead and lights the tree on fire. So every place we went, things were lit on fire. The Pyro Club started there. We started streaming just for the heck of it. Sort of blossomed a little bit. We're one of the folks on the stream was a miniature painter,
Okay.
and we started getting with the miniature painting community. My son was one of the players as well, and we just sort of picked it up from there and built it out as a community. Right now, uh, only one of the original Pyro Club still actively plays on the channel. A couple of others have had some life changes. And our DM comes in occasionally, but he's working on an advanced degree. So he's back to school and not playing as much.
Okay. Yeah.
But we do have a much bigger community now. We have a lot of different players coming in, including our Cobalt campaign, which is a series of semi-connected one-shots, we're calling it, where a lot
Okay.
of different players come in. You want to be a Cobalt for a one shot? Make a Cobalt character. Come on in, play for a few, and then you can keep going or not. So it's a rotating cast.
That's cool. And that one is also streamed.
That is streamed. That is every other Friday night
That's so
on the Pyro
interesting.
Club. Yeah,
And
it started as a joke, and all of a sudden we realized this was going to be fun.
so about well, we know the story of the name, but the logo that you have, does that tree is the tree of the story?
That is essentially the representation. One of the players, she's a streamer, Just Isis. Um, she's an artist, and because the trees kept getting lit on fire, um, she came up with that idea for the logo, and we used it as the arching P with the leaves and the fire, and we can animate the fire sometimes when we have it on there. It's just a lot of we're just having fun with it, so that's all it was a cartoon tree on fire.
I mean, it's a very honest both name and logo because that's what the party does. And
Mhm.
a lot of beginner parties or not so beginners do that all the time, like burn
Oh yeah.
everything down.
Oh yeah, and it became sort of a running joke for a while. As a matter of fact, and I'll pop a couple of them in the chat. A lot of our emotes are fire based. We
Yeah.
have just these two here that I just popped into the chat.
Oh, that's cool.
We have our fire and our fireball, and we've leaned into the fire motif on this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, makes sense. I've had that experience several times. So
Oh, okay.
you mentioned some people. I
Hmm.
mean, I guess you have like a base team on the Pirate Club and then the
Hmm.
others that join whenever they can. Could you
Yes.
tell us like who is the team and which role you have?
So I am the manager of the channel. I own the channel. I took over when the original um, player he left the channel, and I took over. So now, but I was just a player. We all consider the original Pyro Club team as sort of owners of the channel.
Hmm.
Um, we have, as I said, Dices. She's still actively playing. Her fiance has joined in as well. Our Friday night DM, Diomedes, um, he is a very big part of the community as well. And let me see, we have probably I would say 8 or 9 people that I would say are regulars, longtime community members. Uh, they have a lot of them are streamers themselves, which is kind of how we formed the Pyro Club as
Yeah.
because I have my own channel as well, Big Jim Slade Gaming,
Yeah.
where I do a lot of my stuff. But the Pyro Club is where we all come together to play the games. So
Okay.
we have a very, very talented miniature painter, Kathy Wapple. She plays on occasion. There's, like I said, it's probably 8 or 9 people that I would say are the regulars of the channel, but
Mm-hmm.
probably at least a dozen other people that hang out with us. Um, I think our Discord is probably about 8 or 900 people at this point.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah,
So
this
you
is
would
we've
say
come a long way since just, hey, we're playing D&D and just let's just stream it for the heck of it.
yeah, yeah, that's true. So you would say Discord is your base platform and then Twitch.
So, well, Discord is where we come together as a community. We have a lot in there. The way the Pyro Clubhouse is set up is a number of us have our own little sections. I have my section. Kathy, I mentioned before, has hers. Another guy who goes by the nickname Asmodeus Soulpire, he has a section. So we have a number of different folks in there in these different areas. The Twitch channel is where we have our games, our streams, but we do have Discord community nights. We have our Monday nights are everybody jumps into voice chat. Some of us are painting, some of us are playing. We're just hang out as a community and chat for a while. We also have movie nights occasionally, community games,
Yeah,
that sort of thing,
that's
in the
cool.
Discord. I think Discord is where we gather, but Twitch is where we play the D&D games.
Yeah. So which or how many campaigns do you have right now?
Right now we have the two, the
Mm-hmm.
Friday night and the Saturday night. I have a couple of other folks that are planning to get some stuff going. We have somebody who, as soon as his work schedule settles down, we're going to try and get a Pathfinder game in. There's somebody that is trying to work out their schedule to start up a game in the new release of Kryn from the
Mm-hmm.
Dragonlance groups. But right now we have the two and one that we just sort of, I don't even want to call it a campaign. It's occasional one shots and things like that.
So it is true that you guys come a long way from like just want to play and
Mm-hmm.
for whatever reason put it online to what you do right now. How does it feel to do all that now?
I'll be honest, it's weird. Um, so before I got into software, I went to school for, and my first career was in broadcasting.
Okay.
Um, I did editing, producing, live event coverage. I worked as a journalist, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's kind of fun to get back to those activities. A lot of things I do the intros and the stings and bumps for our channel. It's a lot of fun in that regard. It's weird though when I'm recognized to play. I'll go to a con and they're like, "Oh, hey, Slade, how you doing?" and things like that. I'll walk in, I'll hop into a channel and just sort of say hi, and people are like, "Oh, hey, that's Big Jim." Okay, yeah, I'm just this guy. I still think of it though as just there's a bunch of us who like to play games together, a gaming community. I don't make any money off of the Pyro Club. Any of the subscriptions, bits, donations goes into a fund that runs the channel. I will
Mm-hmm.
reimburse DMs if they have expenses to, they have to buy a module on Roll20. I'll
Yeah.
reimburse them through that fund. We have a Zoom subscription that we pay through that fund. So I don't make any money off of it. I have no intention of it. This is purely for fun. Um, but it is a little weird at the same time to say I have fans on the internet, or my channel has fans on the internet. It's a little weird.
I can imagine. You mentioned your I'm sorry, was wizard or warlock? Your
So
character.
my original character
Yeah.
was a sorcerer, a
Sorcerer, sorry.
tiefling sorcerer. Yes.
So which are the common players or archetypes, let's say, that you guys have on your games? Because I can imagine that you have a lot since you have people coming in and out, but like the ones that you see all the time.
It is, and we actually have a very wide variety, especially through the Cobalt campaign, because people will come up and because it's a low commitment, low investment, they will come up with this crazy combination they never thought of before. Um, for example, on the Kobolds themselves, one of my
Mhm.
characters is a rogue who recently took a level of warlock for reasons. Um, who purports himself to be a master magician because early on he stole a couple of magical artifacts, and tries to convince people he's a master magician. We actually are kind of warlock heavy right now. Um, but we actually have a pretty wide range. My Sunday night campaign, we have a paladin, a monk, a warlock, and a ranger. And as soon as they get past level 3, and a couple of them are going to multi-class and branch out from there. But the original Pyro Club was myself, sorcerer, my son who played a cleric, a barbarian, a bard,
Wow, he has
paladin.
played a lot.
Yeah, yeah. We've there actually. I don't think there's a class I haven't played at least some variation of,
Uh-huh.
and a number of them have been on the channel. So we try to get that variety because it's more fun that way in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah, that's true. Well, that's one of the reasons we play role, right? To
Hmm.
be able to experience a lot of
Hmm.
things in our short real life.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. The one thing we don't do a lot of is um, we haven't had a real evil campaign in a long time.
Okay.
But generally, it's sort of chaos. I see somebody mentioned, crazy cobalt. That's exactly how we play it. Is they are just little lizard balls of chaos that have way too high an opinion of themselves,
Yep,
and
that's a
they think
couple.
that they're a mercenary organization and everything. They're and we play that up. That isn't really necessarily, they're selfish, but they're not evil. I have played in those, and I would love to get a game of like a good dark evil campaign going again. Not a lot of takers on that though.
Well, I know some people that might be interested in that. What kind of dark stories you mean, or
So I had this was not on the Pyro Club. This was on another Twitch channel that no longer is around.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I played uh, a half orc cleric
Okay.
of Shar, the dark goddess, the opposite of Mistra. It's the very very dark figure, and we were all basically we all had some level of evil and darkness to our characters, and we were sort of put in this world to that was kind of a prison, and we had to figure out how to get out.
Okay.
Uh, but the world did not like us and wanted to kill us. So it was sort of this really, it was dark, sort of psychologically horror. It wasn't quite like a Ravenloft type darkness, but it was along those lines where everything is going to hurt you probably in some way or another, kind of
Mm,
like Australia.
yeah.
Um, and that was a lot of fun because I got to really dive into a character. Um, and you talk about, you mentioned like you're playing a little bit of yourself. I deliberately did the opposite of that and
Okay.
went with exactly how would I not do something like this, and how would I not react in this situation and make that reaction evil, more selfish, more psychopathic. And that was kind of a good challenge for me as a role player. Um, I'd love to get a Cthulhu game going in here too.
Ooh.
Um, that sort of stuff is a lot of fun as well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Well, I hope you're able to get that. I know a lot of people that are our viewers that like those sort of stories. So hopefully, after they watch this, they will join and maybe push a little bit so you guys can create that game.
And I'll say this now: if somebody has an idea that they wanted to do as a quick shot, that's literally why the Pyro Club is there. So if you had somebody in your community that said, "Hey, I'd like to try this out. I maybe want to get a couple of players and try this," we're there. If you want to try it and stream it out, it's there. Please come talk to us at our Discord. Talk to me directly. We can set you up and give you a time slot for a little while to go and play your game.
Okay, well, thank you so much, guys. There you have it. If you want to play, if you're interested in what he has showed so far. And actually, they're asking if you have any like funny or tragic stories that you remember, something that like stuck in your head forever.
The original Pyro Club campaign had um a number of really tough, tragic moments. Our GM, who streams here under the handle Inventory Full,
Okay.
he's possibly one of the best DMs I've ever played with. He created this world and the story that we played in. I mentioned the cleric that was always missing with Sacred Flame and helped us get the
Yeah.
name Pyro Club. Um, we we kind of got him killed early though. Um,
Oh.
we got a little cocky and took somebody on who was throwing fireballs at us while we were only third level,
Oh.
and the cleric got incinerated. It was almost a max damage fireball and just killed him. And the player rolled a barbarian, and the barbarian, the way he worked into the story was the barbarian was a prisoner of this wizard that we ended up
Okay.
defeating, but at a cost. And he till the end of the campaign, he carried a vial of the ashes of that original cleric around with him as a part of from his barbarian, as the guy who died helping him escape. We had my son played, his first character was a rogue before he took on a cleric,
Yeah.
and he was trying to infiltrate this magic academy, sort of an observatory, and he wanted to try and sneak past the little old lady librarian, who was guarding the desk, and he had to try and get past her, and his stealth roll wasn't that great. So he thought, maybe if I just knock her out, that'll
Okay.
work. So he came up and he went to just sort of, non-lethal damage, bonk her over the head, and he rolled a
Um.
critical damage,
Oh
and
no.
knocked her out, and it hurt her pretty bad, actually. Um, the next day, there were wanted posters everywhere for the rogue and ruffian who assaulted Mrs. Grimblebottom at the library, and that followed us through the entire campaign.
God.
Where it was always Mrs. Grimblebottom was seeking revenge, um, and things like that. It was hilarious that it followed us everywhere. And our kobolds are nothing but hilarious moments most of the time. Um, one of our kobolds, played by a streamer named Vleeger Dragon. She was she is a barbarian, a kobold barbarian, which right off the bat, hilarious. Um, beat up a goblin who was sort of a pit fighter
Okay.
and stole his belt and used to go around like a wrestling champion from the WWE and just challenging everybody and talking into the screen, into the microphone, like a wrestler, challenging, talking about how they're going to come after the fool. And it blossomed from there. It's absolutely hilarious the way that those end up. um there was a good amount of tragedy. My character actually sort of accidentally killed his father with a wall of fire.
Oh.
He lost his temper, and that's what happened.
Oh my.
There's a lot of, and we try to mix it up. That's one of the things I really loved about some of the stories we've had here is we mix it up. There's a lot of fun. We had a great deal of fun. We had, um, let's see how to phrase this for general audiences. We had the D&D equivalent of a virtual reality brothel.
Okay.
Um, and then the next, a few sessions later, we're dealing with having to figure a way to um, basically kill a village that had been infected. And we had, so there's like, it goes from really hilarious to pretty heavy themes
Yeah.
all around. And it's one of the reasons I loved our DM. He was so good at that.
Like jumping from one to the other. Well,
Yep.
funny and tragic stories. There you have them.
Oh, somebody in chat mentioned not just the barbarian wrestler, but the DM gave a magical weapon eventually where she could summon a steel chair and hit somebody with the chair. That's how far we ended up running with that gag. So grappler feats, that's good start, but summoning a steel chair, that's where we've gone with that.
That's so good. I guess, yeah, that's a good question. Do you guys have like some homebrew rules or dynamics?
Yeah, we do have a few. We actually make some of our own up on the stream. We will have streams where myself and Dio, the other DM, will just work with chat and create things. I ran a campaign for a little while that the entire world was made that way. I had a general story that I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to tell about something happening in a world. Chat created the world
Okay.
over a series of different streams,
Yeah.
and we had chat naming the taverns, the businesses, coming up with cities and the story around the cities. Um, do a lot of home brewing. I do flavor into. Um, this actually isn't on the stream. This was in an in person game where um, it was a lot of new players and one very experienced player who was playing a druid,
Okay.
and he was great to have helping out the other players. But to make things interesting, we came up with a variation that he could only wild shape into creatures he had eaten, and there was a ritual to it. So he would have to, within 48 hours of killing this creature, there was a ritual consumption, and that's how he got the wild shape. And because
Okay.
of the restriction, we also added a little bonus where he had like an extra hit dice of hit points on it, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe a little extra AC. Um,
Wait, but he has to eat like the whole creature or maybe
no,
like
just some of it, just some of it. So,
Okay.
if you kill a bear, you make a steak, and but there's a ritual around it. It
Yeah.
becomes almost a religious thing with him, and it was one of the most fun mechanics I think we've ever had, just because it added such a depth to this dwarf druid, already a weird combination.
Yeah.
Um, but and then he starts going, so where would can we find spiders soon? I want to find a spider. You know, I
Yeah,
had no
that's what I
plans.
thought.
I had no plans, but I'm like, okay, I don't know how we're gonna. Maybe we could work a spider in some place. I don't know.
I mean, insects are something that you will find everywhere. It doesn't matter where's your
Sure.
campaign. It's a town, it's the mountain, it's a
Mhm.
forest. Insects
But
always.
if he just picked up one from like the tavern, he could only turn into that one. He couldn't turn into a giant one.
Well,
So, you know, that was how we worked. I wasn't gonna let him get away that easy.
that's very, very cool.
Um,
I immediately started to think of options.
but we've made up our own spells. We submitted a number to Cobalt Press for their books, but none of them have been accepted. But we run them, and with their canon in our universe that you can do these things. I love making up magic items. Um,
Which one is your favorite?
Probably what I call the skeleton key. Um, it's a magical item that if you don't have a rogue in the party, which is how I came up with this idea, basically it acts as thieves' tools that give the person trying to pick a lock one shot at getting it in there as if they are a thief of the equivalent level with
Okay.
proficiency in thieves' tools. The other part of it, though, is they can also lock a door that basically creates a ninth level arcane lock on the door, and they
Okay.
can have one of those running at any given time. I made it because the party didn't have any rogues and they had to have a heist. So I'm like, I don't want to make this impossible for them. So they found this in the course of it, and it turned out to be such a fun invention. I think that's probably that, or there's a bracer that lets you summon. If you ever read the old Spider-Man comic books, he had these
Okay.
things called spider tracers. He'd throw them on somebody, and he could sort of track them
Uh-huh.
with his spider sense. We kind of made something like that, which was a lot of fun for our ranger. Um, but it's very lazy in my part as a GM, but we have the community make up a lot of the homebrew.
Well, I mean, that's part of being in a community, right?
Right, exactly.
Everyone participating. I'm curious, when or at what age did you started to show D&D to your children?
Well, my sons have always been around computers and games and things like that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
When he's my oldest was a baby, I was playing EverQuest early in the morning. He wouldn't sleep and he'd sit in my lap and just watched EverQuest, and he loved all the patterns because I was playing a wizard. So all the spell effects and the particle effects, he loved those. Um, they've both. I have two sons. They've both been into it, and I think the first time they played D&D was probably playing some of my Baldur's Gate and Icewind Dale games as a kid.
Okay.
Um, the first D&D game that my son played in was actually the Pyro Club.
Mm-hmm.
And then my younger son was playing in games with kids from school and things like that. So elementary school, maybe like 10, 11, something like that.
Wow. Wow. That's super young. I mean, pretty much the age you had when you started, right?
Yeah, a little younger. I have run games for kids. Um, I ran one for my friends' kids. They're at the time they were 11 and 8,
Mm-hmm.
and one of their friends that was 8. I definitely toned it down a lot and I simplified a lot of things, but it
Yeah.
was D&D. We played the opening bit from the Tiamat campaign, the
Mm-hmm.
Reign of Dragons, where Greenest, the village, is under attack from a blue dragon. We played that out with the kids. Um, which goes back to what I said about 5e being so really flexible, is you can tune it down a lot easier for that. I haven't tried. There's a game called No Thanks Evil, which is a D&D style RPG made for like second graders.
Oh, okay.
So I haven't tried that yet, but there's a lot of these out there. So it's getting easier to bring kids in and not have to worry about the dark themes. Uh, Going back to my original days, I didn't tell my mother that I was playing D&D because I would have gotten in trouble, because that was the whole satanic panic
Yeah.
period in the 80s. You don't have that anymore. That's not around anymore.
No.
It's for the most part.
Well,
And the community as a whole and the industry as a whole is aiming a lot more towards younger kids. So, and making it accessible for them because they want to do what dad's doing. I have a 9-year-old niece who loves miniature painting when she comes up to visit. She doesn't do it herself when she comes up to visit though, because that's what I do.
yeah.
And she miniature paints with me. As a matter of fact, I'm working on this for her birthday because she loves unicorns. So I've got
Oh.
this from Midnight Heroes, a little chibi unicorn that I'm painting up, and she is going to probably mess it up with more paint, but that's fine.
Yeah, well. that happens with a lot of
Hmm.
toys.
Hmm.
So you said that you started painting miniatures when you got your printer, right?
I got a 3D printer for a couple of other different things. Uh, I've always sort of had this. It's very hobby. I'm not great at it. 3D rendering and modeling and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Going back to the original Lightwave way back in the day. So I got a 3D printer. It was inexpensive, and I thought I could do some things, make some things for around the house. And then I realized I have a game. I have an in-person game starting up. I'll make figures, and I started painting. As a matter of fact, I keep this guy here on my desk to remind me. This was the first miniature. The lighting is awful in here, but he's an ogre zombie, and he's
Okay.
he's painted terribly. But this was the first one that I did, and I did at the same time this guy who is him.
Oh, that's
But this was
cool.
off of Hero Forge. This was an old
Yeah.
Hero Forge model. So I painted them for practice and started doing that, and now um, wow, about almost 4 or 5 years later, and then pandemic hit, so I did a lot more. I'm sitting here all the time.
Yeah.
Um, and so I paint a lot of miniatures. I've given them away. Um, they occasionally pop up on my Instagram, which isn't really. I don't have a good theme for my Instagram. It's whatever happened. I happen to be doing at the time, getting my hair dyed, or a miniature I'm painting. Um, so that's kind of how that's gone on, and I found that it's a really good relaxation thing for me. I know you had oh goodness, I forget her name. You had one of the miniature painting studios on as a guest a little while back.
Yeah.
Um,
Magecraft.
Magecraft, thank you. Um, and I've gotten to know a lot of folks. I don't know her particularly. I've heard of her in the community,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been great for that because I've been able to learn from some amazing artists. And I've gone to ReaperCon a couple of times down in Texas and taken some classes. Um, and my wife is a little concerned that I have so many miniatures everywhere. Um, but that's been my thing. And I don't do as much in person anymore, but I still love it as a thing. I've got the unicorn. I've got this guy that I've been doing. I was recently laid off. So while I'm doing job hunting and resume searching, I'm working on this little guy from
Oh, that's
Moonlight
cool.
Creations.
Mm-hmm.
This little jack-o'-lantern scarecrow dude. Um, and it's my zen. It's my go-to.
It is. I mean, I know some people that do miniature painting, and they've mentioned similar things. Like I do this to relax. I do this to
Mhm,
like focus and get my head off of things. But at the same time, I see them doing it. I watch them painting, and
mhm.
they don't seem relaxed at all. It's like, no, I messed it up. It's so small.
One of the things, and this is why I don't do painting streams as much. I used to do some, um, but I how to phrase this? I get inside my own head, like any artist, anybody doing creation will do
Yeah.
this. Anybody that's been a GM after a session where you're going, oh my God, that went so badly. The player's like, oh, that was a blast. And you're busy going, I screwed everything up. The same thing applies to painting. There have been a number of times I've sat there and go, this just is not working. I have, where is he? I've got this guy that I've been working on for about 6 months that I've gone back and repainted parts of at times.
It's cool.
Um, and I apologize. This is lighting is not my good light isn't working, so I'm on borrowed lights and things.
Don't
Um,
worry.
so
We
it's
can
not
get a
great.
general
But
idea.
I've gone over this guy 4 or 5 times because I don't like how his fur looks. And when you're streaming, you absolutely get this. Well, there are a lot of really great streamers out there, art streamers,
Yeah.
and you constantly compare yourself to them. I'm good friends with a couple of the best out there, the Wapples, Jim and Kathy Wapple, who are
Yes,
amazing miniature painters.
it's true.
Um, and I know they've been doing it for 20 something years. I've been doing it in my basement for 5 and not full time. I'm not a trained artist. I'm a computer nerd. Um, but you get inside your own head. And when you're streaming, you have people watching you and you will get more anxious about it, which is why I don't do the streams as much with the painting. I will occasionally for a special event or a charity fundraiser, but
I mean, in my opinion, the ones that you showed are great, but
oh,
I
thank
am
you.
not a painter. So, but they look good. They look good.
I paint for my table. I don't enter competitions. I've
Mhm.
gone to ReaperCon and people are like, "Why don't you put something in for the competition?" I'm like, that's not why I do it, you know. And I don't feel comfortable and confident. And I know there's, you know, that it's silly in a lot of regards. It's just how I view it. But I paint. Does it look good on my table? Does it look cool? Do if I give it to a character, if I paint something for one of my players of their character, do they like it? Cool. That's all I'm interested in. But I do beat myself up about it a little bit, like the fur. That fur is going to be. I'm never going to finish that miniature because it's going to be an object lesson on how to get inside your own head.
I mean, fur is hard in general.
Mhm.
Like I don't paint, but I do like other things with my hands. And fur in particular, it's very, very hard to get
Yeah.
like
Oh, it
the
is.
texture.
I've gotten okay with eyes, but fur and hair are still tricky for me.
You mentioned that you guys sometimes like connect with the like in Discord to do whatever you're doing.
Mhm.
You do that also with painting, like a lot of people painting at the same
That's
time.
how the Monday night thing started. Was actually
Okay.
Monday night paint night.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and a lot of people still do paint. We have a few people that come in and paint all the time. Other times we're some of us will be playing. Actually, right now, myself and a few other folks in the community are playing on a 7 days to die server, building up our zombie fortress. And we'll be doing that while we're sitting chatting with everybody in the community. We average around 10 or 12 people during those hangouts.
Okay.
Um, and just uh, our other DM, Dio, he's also a leather worker. So he'll be in his shop sewing up leather and things. Um, so that's excuse me, pardon me.
There are.
Um, that's just how it is. And Just Isis, she changed jobs, so she doesn't uh stream as much, but she was a painting streamer. I mentioned some of the others. And because I have a lot of really cool folks I hang out with, I don't do the painting streams as much because you know I'm better at other things.
I think that's amazing. Like the idea of like sitting around because
Mhm.
the pandemic changed a lot of things
Oh yeah.
and a lot of things that I did or my friends did as a hobby or as a way to interact with each other solved and
Mhm.
we weren't sure what to do. But then you find these kind of options and you don't have to actually be friends with the people on the Discord channel. Eventually you might, but you don't have to, and you have a space to show and share and learn. And I think that's amazing.
That's what we want it to be. I'm a firm believer in a community that is there to um, help and build each other up. You know, I've been in gaming groups where it's competitive, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. I enjoyed actually that. Way back in the day, I played competitive Counter Strike, and so there's a lot to go there. Um, that's not what we want this to be, though. It's the Pyro Clubhouse, and it's open to everybody. Come on in, hang out, and we support people. We have a channel that you want to post a mini up that you want to get criticism on or get help with or something like that. We've got half a dozen painters that'll come in and give you help with it. You're having trouble figuring out how to TPK your party. Come in. We'll help you figure out how to kill your players. We'll do that for you.
You don't have to worry about the consequences or the weight of that
Right.
decision.
As a matter of fact, I'll throw this in chat too. This is another one of our emotes for the Pyro
Okay.
Club. It is TPK.
I only experienced TPK in my life once, and
Mhm.
it's actually recent, like 4 months ago.
Oof.
I I mean, I wasn't expecting it. No one
Mhm.
was expecting it. It's amazing. But you sound pretty familiar with TPKs.
It's kind of been a running thing. We came close in the original Pyro Club a couple of times,
Okay.
and um, the first one of the first times, it was totally unexpected. We didn't the DM didn't think the encounter was going to be that deadly. We made a couple of mistakes. We had one of our players do something like all players do, a little something reckless, um, which is fun, but it also almost got us all killed. Um, yeah, the paladin managed to get us out of there with 4 hit points left,
Wow.
and was able to. That was the only reason we did not have a TPK. Um, but it's I've had a couple in over the time. It's more of a sort of a joke though, because we take very seriously this idea that it is not an adversarial game. It is not the DM versus the players.
Hmm.
But it becomes sort of a joke along those lines. Is like, hey, did you kill off this player yet? Oh gosh, how is Max still alive? Um, so it's just sort of a running gag more than anything else. Um, they are good learning moments though.
Like,
Like don't don't just rush into against the King's Guard. Um,
yeah, that's true. So you would think that it's something that everyone would know, but you have to experience it until you really, really know.
right, right, and it's a bummer. I was really worried a couple of times when my guy his name is Minchinos, um, which is Romanian for liar, which that's how I pick a lot of my characters' names.
Okay.
Is I will go to Google Translate and find a couple of languages I have no idea what they are or how they go, and I will plug in words like and I know you have some Portuguese speakers here, so forgive me if I mangle this a little. But when I was in World of Warcraft,
Hmm.
I rolled up a hunter and had no idea what to name him. So I plugged it in and said hunter in Portuguese, and it came back with Cacador, Cacador.
Hmm.
I wasn't thinking clearly on that, however, because I made that, and everybody in the guild said, "Why did you name your hunter Kaka?" Which I'm like, no, that's not what. Oh God.
Yeah.
um, so, but there were a couple of times that Minchinos came very close to dying, and I had been playing him for our campaign went to level 20,
Wow.
and it was about 7 years long. We took breaks in between. There was a whole summer we took off at one point in time. Um, and but there were a couple of times he almost died, and I was like, that really would bum me out. I was really worried, and you get anxious. Uh, I don't know if you've ever had this happen, where you have a character that you've invested so much in, and you feel that you have this adrenaline rush, and your
Yeah.
nerves are shot, and you're almost grieving for the loss of a game character. um, so it when you but a full TPK ends the campaign or ends that party's part of the campaign,
Yeah.
and that's tough. Um, so the excuse me from I just got a message from my son. I apologize. I just want to check it. Okay.
Don't worry.
Um, we've had some stuff going on, and I want to make sure it isn't a problem.
Yeah, yeah. Don't worry.
um, and I totally lost my train of thought. Oh, um, it also is tough for the DM. The DM,
Yeah.
if you're a GM and you relish the idea of a TPK, stop being a GM, please. Stop it. I try to make it so it is always a possibility, because you always have to have some level of risk. Um, that somebody could die, or in the case of a boss battle, yeah, you might all get killed by this guy if you're not smart about things.
Yeah.
But I don't have take any joy out of it or anything. Um, pardon me.
Don't worry.
My
I mean,
teeth.
in some cases makes sense and it has to be done because the party, like, that's the consequence of what they are doing.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing. That's what makes it a lot of interest. That makes it interesting. I have only DM'd a TPK once, and that was because the only reason it ended up as a TPK was the dice hated my players. I was rolling crits, they were rolling ones.
Oh
Is
my
and one of my players, one of the paladin, the main tank,
God. Hmm.
he missed, what was it? It was like 18 attacks in a row.
Wow.
He couldn't roll above an 11 to save his life. And it didn't save his life, obviously.
Yeah.
Um, and it was a point where a lot of times I'll mitigate and sort of give them an out or something like that. This was a boss fight though, and we had to run with it.
Yeah.
And it was a bummer, and it I made sure after the session that we all talked about it, which is something I do as a GM anyway. There's something heavy that happens during the story. Um, Recently, we had a session where the party was too late to save a young girl who had been kidnapped by a monster. That's a heavy thing. That's
Yeah.
really hard. And so we sat and we talked about it for a while. Um, and it turned out the party was able to sort of save her later. But we do that with the character death too. Is sit back and say, "Hey, let's talk about this. You know, how we feeling? We feeling okay? Don't beat yourself up because you couldn't get the heal spell off in time." In that one case, the paladin was very upset with himself. I'm just like,
Mhm.
the dice hated you, man. You can't control it. You can't say it's your
Yeah.
fault, you know. But we do. We all get into that. We all dive right in as part of being role players. Um, I hope that we sort of diverged away from the question you originally asked, but
Yes, I'm not sure about the question, but it doesn't matter. I mean, the idea is to get to know what you guys do and
mhm,
how you play, especially
yeah,
because I mean, we have guests like, for example, create things for games. In
mhm,
this case, you are a community to that people can join and play. So it's very important that our
mhm,
viewers and whoever watches this in the future on YouTube or whatever, well, actually on YouTube, they can see how you play and how
yeah,
you guys do things. So doesn't matter.
yeah.
And actually, the chat is enjoying the story.
Oh, good. Good. I'm glad. I'm glad. Um, it's funny you mentioned chat. That's one thing that I want to definitely talk a little bit about. That we
Sure.
try. One of the things that is from day one of streaming, the Pyro Club has wanted chat to be as much of a part of the game as the players. So there's always been this thing called helps and hinders. You can donate bits or channel points to help, which gives potentially the players an inspiration or a bonus on a dice roll,
Hmm.
or a hinder, which does the same for the DM. Um, and we try to respond to what's happening in chat as players, as characters, as the GM, and it's what we want to try and do to. And this is nothing against other D&D streams. I'm a huge critter. I will admit it. I love Critical Role D20. I watch a lot of small streams that are very serious, hardcore D&D streams, and I love them. I'll sit and do that. We didn't want to do that though, and so that's why chat helps on special sessions to build the worlds, build the homebrew things, make up spells, but also be a part of the game. The
Yeah.
the best way to get a DM is to go with at a throwaway NPC. It says, "What's that guy's name?" And they go, "Oh, I didn't think of a name," and have to struggle.
Yeah.
We take the easy way out. We ask chat, "What's the name of this NPC?" And that becomes canon in the universe. Um, and so that is an important part of the Pyro Club. Is it's not just the 4 or 5 people you see on your screen. Everybody's a part of this experience.
That's beautiful. I like that. Sometimes, well, we do try to do that. Not all DMs can do that because you have to pay attention to a lot of
Mhm.
things. But
Right.
but and I think that's very cool because sometimes when you watch a stream that is only there for a show,
Hmm.
it's you can enjoy it as a show, but it's not the
Hmm.
same. And RPGs are to interact. Like
Hmm.
that's the main part of it. So I think that's good that you guys do that.
I think it's also, obviously the big streams, the ones I mentioned, D20, Crit Roll, places like that, or anything off of the Beyond channel.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they have too big a crowd. They can't do that, and that's not the point. And what we wanted to do is we don't have a Pyro Club. We have a Pyro Club YouTube channel. There's almost nothing on it though, because what we try to do is keep things live. We want to have folks
Okay.
there and participating and engaged in the stories that we're telling and the stories that we're playing. Um, and that's literally from the beginning. That was something that we were always interested in, both to help the channel get more viewers and engagement. But as it turns out, we found it'll be a lot more fun. It is hard as a GM in that environment. It's tough.
Yeah.
I'm also the stream host, so I've got OBS on this monitor. I've got my Roll20 stuff here. I've got chat up here. I've got 3 monitors that have all the real estate taken up with everything.
Wow.
Um, and it can be tough, but I'll tell you, I love it. It's so rewarding.
That's amazing. And me personally, admire the people that do both the streaming and
Mhm.
narrating. It's amazing. A lot of practice.
Yeah, I was so bad at the beginning. Oh God, I was so bad at it. And the best thing in the world was when for a birthday present I was given a stream deck, and just having the buttons make my life so much easier.
Yeah, this true does help a lot. About the Pyro Club, like a project in general,
Mhm.
um, did you guys? I guess you talked about it before. Did you ever imagine you would become what you are right now? Like the amount of people on your community and watching your streams.
No, and there's actually a really interesting concrete example of this. Um, we do regular benefits, charity fundraising,
Mm-hmm.
um, and at one point in time for Extra Life, we raised $2,300, um, and we were like, wow, that's wild, that's amazing. And then one year, this was the first year of the pandemic, 2020. Like I said, I live in the Boston area,
Mm-hmm.
and there's the Greater Boston Food Bank, which is this massive distribution center for donated food and getting it out to food banks and to shelters and all of these things.
Yeah.
And the company I worked for at the time used to go, and we used to do volunteer days there as the company. Pandemic hit, couldn't do that. So I said, you know what, I'll do a fundraiser. And um, this is where it really hit home to me, as I set a goal of $1,000. I'm like, if I can get $1,000 for this is going to be great. And what I said was, if we hit $1,000, I will dye my hair. And we raised $3,800. I mean, almost $4,000 over the month of December that year,
Wow.
and it was all relatively moderate donations. We had a couple of folks that did $200, but for the most part, it was $25, $30 donations that added up to $4,000.
That's a lot of people.
Exactly. And that was where it really hit me, is like, this is something. Sure, we, on a particular stream, we might only have 14 people in chat, and 4 of them are us on the stream. But at the same time, we have a community that does this, And yes, to this day, my hair is still blue. I have kept the blue hair. Um,
That's cool.
it has grown out a bit. I haven't
I-
retouched it up in a while. Um, but that's where it really hit me. And then we had people coming in and joining in the games. And like I said, I went to ReaperCon and people were like, "Oh, hey, Slade, how you doing?" And I'm like, "Hi."
That's
um,
amazing.
yeah, it is a little weird. I'm just this guy in Boston playing with a bunch of Canadians. That was the other thing. The Pyro Club, my son and I were here in Boston. Everybody else was in Canada. So
Really?
I've never met in person any of the other players from the Pyro Club.
You have to.
Oh,
It's very
I will at
important.
some point. I will. We will at one point. We were all going to get together to go to a convention a couple of years ago, but pandemic.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's kind of it's a really interesting example. I've met a lot of people in the community
Yeah.
in person since at cons and things like that. But the original five of us, six of us,
Never.
nope.
Wow. That's amazing. And well, I am going to guess that this that you just said would be your answer. But what would you think that is the thing you've enjoyed the most of all this experience, all these years?
The people. I love playing the games. Don't and I love coming up with characters and stories and playing around with the whole idea of streaming in general. And on my own channel, playing a lot of video games and doing really stupid things. Um, but I've been able to meet so many people and make friends, and I'll go to a con and people will sit there and we'll all have a pickup game, or sit around and have a few drinks and swap stories, our old stories on the first night we've ever met in person. uh, and I've I've gotten to know people from around the world. Um, I have had offers of places to stay if I go to Norway, England, Ireland, France, Germany, Belgium, Turkey, Italy. I've all these people that I've met and I've gamed with that have said these things. Um, and that's the real thrill for me, is just being able to meet. And then it was funny when you reached out. I was like, that kind of threw me a little bit too. Why do you want to interview me? You know, why am I interesting? Um, but getting to and folks like you and your chat that I would never. I'm an Irish kid from Boston. I would never have this kind of exposure if it wasn't for this game and this community and this technology.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah. It is amazing. You're correct. And on the other hand, what would you say that has been like the hardest part or the part that you don't enjoy that prefer to skip?
The management of of something like this.
Okay.
So I am a I am a textbook ADHD type person where my mind's in a million different places, which is hilarious because I'm a software engineer. You'd think I'd have better focus. But the idea of having to do all these promotional things and I'm terrible with social media. Like I said, my Instagram account is pictures of me, my son, some miniatures, something I had for lunch. It's all over the place. It's scattered. I don't do a branding well in on my own,
Hmm.
and making myself do that and there are parts of it too where you have to jump through a lot of hoops, and I don't know how if folks I know I'm preaching to the choir here, really appreciate the amount of work that goes into hosting the streams. And I'm doing this for two channels. you know, um, and overlays. Oh God, overlays. I am not a good artist. This was done by a friend of mine who is actually a coworker, another person I've never met in person. He lives down in Buenos Aires. I worked with him, and he was a comic book artist as a hobby, and he drew this just for fun. Um, I'm not good. I'm not good at that. That's not where my skills are, but that's part of the thing is making all of these things and
That's true.
going out and trying to drum up support and asking people to do things is not my idea of fun, but
It
it's part of the thing. It is. So
is. I mean,
also I can't stop staring. Cat Cat Thulu is how I'm reading that username. And all I can think of is a Cthulhu with big cat ears and whiskers. And I love the image so much. And I need to make that a miniature somehow. I love
yeah.
that username.
Yeah, I've always wondered what's the story behind that. You have to tell us Cthulhu at some point. By the way, for Heather, he's actually the founder and of the studio and the designer.
Oh,
He's
okay.
saying hi to your son, please.
Oh, yeah. I did pass it along and we were caught in conversation.
All
I
right,
did
perfect.
pass it along. My son he's funny. He was streaming with us and he does his own streaming now and then, but in general, he's a very shy person. So he was just he sort of waved back.
That's nice. Um, you mentioned a little bit of how it works, but I would like if you could be more like specific in case I'm sure people will be interested. But in case someone is interested in joining you guys, how can they send the message or how does it work? How do you like plan?
So so planning. Did you not hear the bit I just said about not planning? Um so our channel is the Pyro Club. That is the main channel. There is a link to our Discord on that, and I'll I'll pop the let's see. Um I'll pop the URLs in chat for folks. Let's see.
Oh, don't worry. I think our stream master will do it in a bit. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, so Big Jim Slade Gaming is my channel. I do a lot of variety stuff. The Pyro Club is our other, and the Discord link is in there. And you can find me in there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a number of folks. Anybody who is in our Discord are the administrators are called pyromaniacs. The mods are fire starters. Anybody in those categories, if they're online, hit them up. Reach out to them. Reach out to me directly.
Okay.
And we'll start the conversation up. You can join the community and just jump in. If you want to do something on the stream, let us know. We'll love to have you.
And if they want to like start a campaign or a game with you guys, how does it work?
Exact same thing. What we'll do is
Okay.
we'll come up with it. There are a couple of rules that I have about the type of content in your campaign. The standard stuff. We don't have racist themes. We do not have abusive themes,
Okay.
things along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
Harm against children, the standard content like triggering type of things.
Yeah.
We go through that a little bit. We
Okay.
set up some time. We get some players together. You can hit them up if you bring them in. Great. If you want to pull them from the community, even better.
Okay.
And we start from there. There really isn't. It is a very conversational process, and Friday nights and Sunday nights are the only nights that are reserved. Any other night, we'll get that going. And if if you are a streamer already, we can work it out. You don't even necessarily need me or one of the other hosts to be there
Okay.
with the right forms and things like that. I do have you sign a disclaimer electronically. I will give you a temporary stream key and the media to make the overlays and the roll-ins that we have, and go ahead, host it. We have great mods. Oh goodness, my Instagram. Oh Lord, don't critique me too hard on it. Um, my son is Scroll Keeper with an underscore between them, so SCROLL underscore keeper. He's not a very regular streamer, but he does come on and do stuff on occasion. So yeah, give him a follow as well. That would be great. He'd be thrilled.
Yeah,
Um,
and whenever he jumps in, we will be joining him.
yeah, yeah, please, that would be wonderful. We also, it's fine. We also on my channel have what we call the real estate streams,
Okay.
where a few of us will jump into Discord. I collect a bunch of amazingly terrifying, good, bad, hilarious, scary real estate listings, and we'll riff on them, mystery science theater style, and we'll go through and people will riff on them. That's the kind of community things that we've been doing.
Okay.
Um, that's another thing. You can just jump right in, send me stuff. That's literally why we're here.
That's amazing. Well, there you have it, guys. Whenever you want to join, whenever you have some time or any ideas, you can join the Pyro Club.
Mhm.
Um, so we are reaching almost the end of
Oh
the
wow,
show.
that was quick.
I I would really like to thank you for accepting for coming representing the Pyro Clubhouse.
Thank you, thank you. This has been really exciting and a lot of fun. I don't do this very often, and I thank you all for reaching out and taking an interest in our little corner of the internet.
Well, it didn't seem so little when I find it. So that's one of the reasons why I thought this is very cool because it's a big community on Discord and I like what they're doing. It
Mhm.
feels uh, friendly. It feels like a community for
I'm glad
real.
you're saying that because that is literally the goal. We want to be just friendly for folks. And my mods are the best mods. They are so good at maintaining that kind of atmosphere. I can't say enough about it. I know we had a mod love day recently, and I want to make sure I'm handing out the love to my mods.
It's a very important role, to be
Mhm,
honest. So,
for sure.
before we can jump to the last part of the show,
Sure.
I like to. We usually give you some, or the guests, some time to like make any announcements or mention anything else that you would like to mention,
Mhm,
related to what you've mentioned, or anything else that you would like to
sure.
share with us.
Um, we, oh gosh, I think this coming Friday, we will be having a Kobolds game.
Okay.
So it starts at 8 o'clock Eastern on the Pyro Club. And on Sundays, next Sunday we'll be back into it. This week we're off. We have a campaign called Tales of the Old Margrave, which I GM. I have 4 players, and we're basing it in the Cobalt Press universe, where they in the Margrave Forest, which
Okay.
is a sentient forest. Think Mirkwood from the Lord of the Rings. Um, and I myself, I have been streaming off and on. I have not been able to keep as firm a schedule, but I do make sure I put alerts out and things like that when I do a live. And it's usually just me playing some games. I've been playing Marvel Midnight Suns. I'll do map making. I'll be sitting here playing with my incarnate or one of my world mapping systems, and I'll make a map and just have fun with chat while we're doing it. So I don't have a schedule, so I couldn't tell you the next time I'm going to be streaming. Um, but that's those are my announcements.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much. Well, guys, join the server on Discord. It's very active. Again, as I mentioned, it's very friendly. And if you have any ideas or would like to play, just let them know.
Please,
Again, thank you so much for accepting.
thank you.
We do have on the channel like small symbolic way to show you our appreciation of this time that
Okay,
you're giving us. Um, our viewers will be able to see it like in a few seconds on the screen, and then I'll make sure to send it to you directly. It is
okay,
an acknowledgement that our designer creates for our guests. This one, if I'm not mistaken, is under the name of the Pirate Club. So again, yeah, it's just like a small token of appreciation.
oh, appreciate it. That's great.
And now I'll just jump real quick to announcements. I'm gonna switch to Spanish because most of them are for
Yes,
Spanish.
please. That's fine.
Tenemos a las 7 de México, es decir, en hora y media tenemos Perpetuaedro. Únanse a ver roleros jugando videojuegos, a ver qué tal les va. Y después tenemos el viernes Eternuliet, el sábado Orden del Icosahedron Fulgurante y domingo tenemos Shining Icosahedron Great Order. Próximo domingo es en portugués. Again, thank you so much for joining. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it. I will be following on your campaigns and I'll try to join at least one of the kobolds.
Absolutely. We'd love to have you be a kobold with us.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much. Thank you guys for joining to watch this and make your checks be always critical.